I welcome you all to today's program, which is the third in a series of lectures by Swamiji. He started out with temples being a repository of spiritual truths, and yesterday he did a nice contrast between spirituality and religion, and today he was going to follow it up with rites and rituals and updated understanding. And as he was coming in, he heard that we had our Pattabhishekam today. That's why he was a little late. He wanted to know how the Pattabhishekam was done. He asked me, and I said I didn't know. Like most of us don't know exactly how to explain these rites. Hopefully today, by the end of this lecture, we'll be able to have a better understanding of why we perform these rites and rituals in the manner we do. And we welcome Swamiji with an open heart, and let us enjoy today's lecture. He's very well known in India through his ashram in Bangalore called Dhyanapeetham.
ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वदी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं सद्गुरुं तं नमामि. I welcome you all with my love and respect. Rites and rituals, an updated understanding. Let's analyze this topic completely. Let's look deep into the roots of rituals, why rituals are created. Why rituals? In ancient time, meditation techniques which are used by masters to feel the divine connection within themselves. In course of time, when the meaning is lost, if the idea or concept behind, if the philosophy behind the ritual, if it is not transmitted to the next generation, if only the action is transmitted, not the philosophy is transmitted, then those meditation techniques became rituals. Understand? When the philosophy behind the ritual is not transmitted, only the action, the physical action is transmitted, then meditation techniques became a ritual. When you do it with understanding of the philosophy behind and full of heart, any ritual can become meditation technique. When you do without understanding and without your consciousness, awareness, even meditation technique will become one more ritual. There is no difference between meditation technique and ritual except your interest in it, that's all. With your interest, any ritual can become meditation technique. It can directly connect you with a cosmic energy. It can put you online or in tune with the ultimate energy. There are so many different kinds of rites and rituals. I think our religion has got at least few millions of rituals. Please understand, not few thousands or not few lakhs, few millions of rituals. So many thousands of mudras, so many thousands of types of homa, so many thousands of types of pujas, millions of rituals. I was telling you the other day how we worship all the 5 elements. The whole existence is made of these 5 elements. We can relate to the existence, we can relate to the cosmic energy through all these 5 elements. When you try to relate to the cosmic energy through a stone or a metal idol, it is called puja. When you try to relate to the same cosmic energy through a river, through a pond, through a water body, it is called tirtha snana. When you try to do some ritual standing in a water or sitting in water and meditating, repeating some mantra or offering some puja to the water, it is called tirtha puja or tirtha snana. When you try to fall in tune with the cosmic energy through fire, it is called homa. When you try to fall in tune with the cosmic energy through air, it is called repetition of mantra. Through repetition of mantra or japa, you can fall in tune with the air energy. Through chanting the mantra. When you try to, you can fall in tune with the cosmic energy through ether using visualization. That's what we call meditation. Through meditation, you can fall in tune with the ether. We fall in tune or we connect ourselves to the cosmic energy through all these 5 methods. Mainly, we can classify our rituals as rituals done for human beings. When you take birth, when you are given a new name, when you marry, when you are given food first time, they call it annaprasna, or when you are given the food. The rituals done for human beings, when you die, these are one set of rituals. There's another one set of rituals done for the gods to invoke their presence in temple and invoking their presence at the time of puja. There are so many things. Puja is nothing but you receiving a guest with all the respect. Actually, what priests do in the temple is nothing but you receiving a guest with all the respect. When a guest comes to your house, very elderly, who is supposed to be respected, you receive that person, give him a chair and give water to wash his feet or wash his hands. You are asking, you want to use the bathroom? Giving him the chair is only asanam samarpayami. Priest will give the seat. You ask him, do you want to use the bathroom? You want towel? That's what they say, bhadyam samarpayami. They offer the water to wash the feet. And then you are, of course, when a person comes, you offer flowers, you offer little flowers as a respect. They give argyam samarpayami, the flowers are offered. Then naturally arrange for his bath and comfortable stay. That's what we say, snanam samarpayami. Then naturally you ask him to eat. Food is served. Naivedyam samarpayami. Then you give betel leaf and betel nut. Tambulam samarpayami. Then in the end of the day, you put him to rest. The same thing. That's why we say the puja in our system is called seva. It has got one more word. Serving the Lord. Serving the deity. We need to understand this concept of serving. Of course, for a logical person, it's very difficult to understand that energy can be alive in one stone and continuously, day in and day out, you can serve that energy. All these things are very difficult to understand. But I have seen people really feeling, not only feeling, expressing that feeling in the physical world, in physical form. Ramakrishna, when he used to do puja, he says, sometimes I used to think whether really Devi is accepting my puja or I am just wasting my time. I used to suspect whether she is really alive here or I am just sitting and wasting my time. He says, I used to take a thread out of my cloth and keep near her nose to see whether she is breathing or not. Whether she is breathing or not. And of course, Ramakrishna achieved the peak, achieved the ultimate experience just through rituals. Let me tell you this one incident. If at all you get a chance, you must go to Calcutta and see the Kali temple in which he was doing puja. And don't miss, of course, you will be allowed very near. In North Indian temples, you can go very near the deity. You can touch almost in all the temples. Here you can't touch because they have covered the deity with gold and silver. That's the reason you can't touch a lot of gold jewelries and silver jewelries. But you can go very near. Almost you can go near 1 or 2 feet. In other many temples you can touch the deity and do puja by yourself. When you go, don't miss an important thing. Let me narrate the incident, then you will understand. In Calcutta, they have a habit of offering conch bangles, bangles made out of conch. The conch shell will be cut and they will make bangles out of it. And they will offer the bangles to the deity, to the Devi. Some devotee brought 4 pieces of conch bangles for Devi. Kali's 4 hands, the right side will be Abhaya and Varada. The left side she will be holding sword and head of a Asura. The sword is removable. So he was able to put the bangle in all the 3 hands except the hand which is holding the head of the Asura. Except that hand, because in that hand the bangle cannot go. All the other 3 hands he put the bangle. Some priest was asking, why you are not able to put the bangle for the mother in the 4th hand? He said, oh, that hand is holding the munda or the head of the Rakshasa. The priest said, oh, you are a great devotee. You can say, mother will open her hands and you can insert the bangle. And he is so sincere, you will be surprised. Of course, still I am not able to understand. Even after seeing, I can only just believe and respect and do namaskar and come out. Really, he asked the mother and she dropped the head. Bangle was inserted Again he gave the head to the mother's hand, she is holding. Neither the statue is broken, nor the bangle is broken, it is there in her hands. If you go, please don't miss, see it. Of course, when I went to the temple, I was in an ashram, very famous ashram. I went as a part of the ashramite. So I was allowed to touch that bangle and see. Not only I touched the bangle, I completely rotated that bangle and saw whether it is broken at any point, whether he broke and pasted it. I inspected. I tell you, the bangle is complete. It is not broken. And the statue is also full. It is not broken. Stone statue. Statue is also there as it is. Bangle is also there as it is. But it is there inside. Very difficult to believe. And it is not some 300, 400 years old. It's just 130 years. Just 130 years ago, in 1886, he passed away. Only 130 years. I don't know. We have no logical explanation. But it is there. That much only we know. The power of mind, the devotion, can express physically. See, if you have a darshan of Devi and if you feel that Devi is here and all those things are very subjective. You can't see it in the physical way. It is an individual's experience. But here, physically it is expressing. We heard a lot of stories that Udupi Krishna turned for the sake of Kanakadasa, or Vittal was waiting on a brick for the sake of his devotee. All these stories we hear. But this is something which I have seen with my own eyes. Very difficult to believe, but which is there. He has reached such high peak just by rituals. Just by rituals. Vivekananda says beautifully, if you can create Ramakrishnas, not one idol, have thousands of idols and start doing rituals. If you can create one Ramakrishna, not one idol, have thousands of idols, start doing rituals. And there are so many other experiences of Ramakrishna related to these rituals. But this one is enough to explain the power behind the rituals. Physically he is able to alter the whole structure. Physically he is able to command the Murti or the deity out of his devotion, out of his power. It's only one incident. There are so many other incidents which you can say. Once he requested a nearby hibiscus plant to give hibiscus in both colors. From same branch, two different color hibiscus came out for the sake of puja. So like this, so many incidents, he was just able to command the power of meditation or the power of mind. When we intensely do the rituals, we completely fall in tune with that deity, with that energy, with that Murti. She just listens to you. The Vigraha, the Murti, just listens to you. Of course, there are incidents about Madurai. One great enlightened master came and was staying in Madurai. The Madurai temple has got beautiful elephants, 8 big stone elephants in the Garbha Mandir. Actually, the story goes, the 8 big elephants are holding the Garbha Mandir of the Madurai temple. So, Nawab, he comes and makes fun of these statues. What is this? Elephants are standing here unnecessarily. He just makes some comment. Then the master says, don't think they are stones, they are living elephants. They are here to serve Chokanada. This Nawab laughs. What are you talking? Then this enlightened master, he gives sugar can and the elephant eats. The story says the elephants eat the sugar can. Of course, this all story, we don't know how much they are true or whether they are fact or truth. We don't know about all these things. But this one thing, I myself have seen the bangle, unbroken bangle in the hands of Devi.